Hello guys, today I'll be installing an auto-dimming mirror and the light sensor for automatic headlight.
So to begin with, we're going to look at a diagram. I've obtained this from Autodata. They're absolutely brilliant. It's not sponsored by them this video, however, I would thoroughly recommend them. They're quite expensive, but they have thousands upon thousands of wiring diagrams for different vehicles. So you want to focus your eyes or your attention to B203. This is the light sensor, and there's three wires what come out of the light sensor. Number one wire, which is a violet and blue wire. Number two wire, which is a black wire. And number three, which is a brown and violet wire. This is just basically a ground wire, so that runs off to a ground. The ground is actually on one of the A pillars. Now you need to focus on these two wires because these are more important. We have the two wires. This wire runs to connector D, pin 21. This already has a wire in. However, you'll need to splice into this wire and just solder in another wire to tap into it. And that's run to fuse 14, but you don't need to worry about that. And this wire runs to connector A, pin 35, and this is the sensing wire or the signal wire. So this is quite important. This is so it recognizes, well, the different light intensities and also the motion for the rain sensor as well. It's the rain light sensor. So with that understanding, we're going to move to the body control unit, and we're going to take the connectors out, connector A and D, and we're going to figure out which pins need to go where. Before we get going, we want to disconnect the battery. So this is the body control unit on which we'll be running the wires to. So first of all, you've got this connector and this connector what we'll be working on. This is connector D, so we'll start with this. You want to just push that tab in and push it up. And it doesn't come out, you push forward at the top and it'll come out like that. So to begin with, you want to remove the little cable tie. You can, if you can't get it off, you can usually just cut it off, it doesn't really matter. And on here you'll see it has a tab on this side. You want to basically hold the tabs in and slide at the same time. It's a bit of a challenge really, but yeah, like that. Then we have the connector. This is connector D, as I've labelled it before. And we now need to work on this. You may observe that there's actually no numbers on here, which makes it rather difficult when we're looking at pin numbers. So you may think, how the hell am I going to work it out? Well, I'll work it out for you. So these two big wires here, they're the wires for the wiper motor. And I know that this one is 32, this one is 16. So therefore, that's 1, and you'll count across, and that'll equal 16. And then you go 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So this wire here is 21 on connector D. So you want to splice into this wire, which I have already done, and run your wire basically into this wire here. And this will basically power it, and this will link off to fuse 14. So that's your power wire here. And to tap into it, I use wire strippers, stripped it apart, wrapped the basically wire together, the braided wire, and then soldered it and then taped it. And I also ran it up the loom so that you can't tell, so it looks all factory, and wrapped the basically the loom tape back around it. So to put it back together, after you've done that, you want to slide the connector in like this, and you want to make sure it locates on there like that. And that's pretty much back together. You just want to put your cable tie back on. So that one is now done. So now we're going to work on the connector A. I'm just going to snip this off this one time, but make sure you're flipping careful with snipping it off. For God's sake. There we go. Nicely done. Right, once again you want to relieve it, well, slide it off, but this actually is slightly snapped on this one. I previously broke it. Anyway, so this one you're actually blessed with the fact it's got numbers. So it says 1 there, 46 there. And it actually has the numbers on this side as well, 60. So this time you want to count to 35, pin 35. So what I'd recommend doing is removing the tape here, and it allows you to pull the loom open more, and then you're able to literally feed through the wires and count the actual individual pins. So if I just remove the tape, right, so there we go. Now you want to open the loom up, as I said, the connector loom, and it'll give you a good view of every single pin. So as you can see, the numbers work around like that. So you want to count round up to 35, and looking at this connector, 39, 38, 37, 36, 35. So here, in this connector, you want to count all the way down till you get to 35, and then you want to put a pin into the connector. Just simply click it in, and then this will run. You need to run basically the cable up the dashboard and around the back. So we're just going to put the loom tape back together now. It's extremely sticky though, so it's not the nicest stuff to work with, so bear that in mind. And also it's quite awkward to get off your hands as well. There we go, like that. And we're just going to put a cable tie around it. Haven't really got any smaller cable ties, but this one will do. There we go. So what you want to do, after you've removed the trim piece, as I showed, you'll want to drape your wires down the back of here. It's got a little trunk in, so you can keep all the wires together. And you'll run it all the way around up here, and all the way to the headliner at the top, like that. And you'll want to run the wires, literally right across all the way up to the mirror. For your grounding, the grounding spot is here. I actually had to get another bolt myself because literally the grounding spot wasn't even used. And I've ran the mirror and also the light sensor grounding point to here. And that literally sits behind nicely in the existing loom. So for the wiring, it's not the most cleanest I've ever done. However, it functions. So for this black wire here, that just literally runs to the ground on the A-pillar, as I said. And for the colours, I know they're not the easiest to see, but that's the brown and violet cable. I've literally just extended it with a green cable, and that's basically the power, which goes to fuse 14. And the violet and blue cable, which is, this is run to the black wire here, basically runs to pin 35 connector A, like this. It's not the most neatest thing, but it functions. So for the light sensor, I've cut a piece of a vinyl wrap out, and I've just applied it to the windscreen, and then I've stuck the sensor to the vinyl wrap, and it seems to work okay. It's not the neatest thing because there's a gap here, because basically because of where the bracket is, it's up on the other car, and even if I was to remove the bracket and move it up, the windscreen tint, which is this stuff, would be in the way. So this was the best way I could do it, and it looks okay, I suppose. I could wrap tape around here, so I'll put it all back together and show you what it looks like with it all together. It's not perfect, but it will do for now. So for the mirror, this is the connector. It's actually got 4 cables, but 2 of them are only required if you want to just do the actual mirror functions without the cancellation. So the 2 wires are actually these 2 here. It is the black and purple and blue cable. And the black cable is indeed the ground for the connector, which runs to the same grounding point as what the sensor runs to. And this cable here, the purple and blue one, is actually the same cable as the light sensor. So you could technically tap this into the light sensor and they both function correctly. So in the end, it's not too bad really, it's quite neat. Except from that gap there and the wires that you can see, but it's not too bad because you gain the automatic mirror out of it. You also gain the automatic headlights and the automatic wipers if you want them. So to put the trim back in, you want to slot it in just down here with the door open, probably, preferably. You got to make sure it locates nicely down here. Make sure that corner's in there and that corner's in nicely. The door seal might get annoying, so you could pull that out of the way. Then you just want to fit it in, then give it a smack. There's 2 clips, so if you give it a push, it'll all go back into position. So we're going to remove the little connector, push your little tab in as usual, and push the lever down. That's the connector released. Then you have a few little tabs here to press. You want to depress these tabs, like so. Here's the difference between the 2. It's got the automatic little button, and it also has the front fog light for future videos. For reinstall, you just want to line it back up again with the tabs on the side, push through and it clicks in place. This does actually have illumination, and you basically need to add another pin, and it's the bottom, well, it's pin number 1 basically what's missing. You need to add that. It's basically a 12-volt ignition wire. There we go, that's clipped in place. Now we need to push it back in and we should be good to go.